Hi, Davi here, and today we have a new episode in the art review series, and today we'll be checking out the work of YeeJ Chan. So we have their Instagram page here, but I did find their work via YouTube first, and obviously they do have their links here, their Instagram and stuff, and that's where we have this. But they do have quite a few videos on their YouTube channel. And it's so cool because you can see like a bunch of time lapses of their work. It looks like they paint for so long because I don't know, for the kinds of work they do, it's just like it takes some time. But what I've noticed just based on their like approach, their painting approach, they're very painterly. They have that hint of impressionism in their work, which I do like. And I don't know, I just gravitate towards these kinds of artworks more, and especially in terms of the process. So let's just see one of their videos here to show you, because they do share some clips on their Instagram. Right, it starts as a rough sketch. They do some very quick sort of line work, and then they sort of block out some flats, determine they determine the lighting, and then there's this like big sort of gap where they just go in and just paint, and if you zoom in into their work, it's just very, I don't know, you do see a lot of like brushstrokes. I mean, they do leave some of that initial, well, not initial, but that kind of file or this kind of line work in the end, but for the most part it ends up being like a painted thing to the point where you can't even see the lines anymore. Wait, let me just click on this. Okay, let's try this. Oh, now I do recommend you zoom in into their work because you will see they do have a little bit of brush variety. I do see a bit of a rake brush here, right? Or maybe they use some dashy, like line strokes. But I think they mostly use like opacity heavy or based brushes, meaning you sort of have to build up the paint via layering. And it's very different from, say, an oil painting approach or a gouache like approach. It's very close to like watercolors. Like there's a lot of like transparency going on, and you have to build up your values or colors in that kind of way. But as you can see, there is a bit of line work. It's still showing, but and sometimes when they do the line work, it's sometimes a round brush, but it still has some opacity, which I find really interesting. And yeah, I think they just spend so much time in this like painting phase, because if you zoom in, you can see like even in the shadow parts here, like there's so much or so many sort of like bleeds, which is very reminiscent of like watercolor paintings. Sometimes you just let the watercolor paint just flow throughout your like canvas, and you allow it to sort of bleed into other colors, and it has this like very mixed sort of like sky kind of vibe, where it just seems so like, I'm not sure what the word is, but and they do have a thing for like drawing like the face, especially the eyes. Like they really go into detail and render that thing to freaking oblivion. So let's try viewing this process video. I'm very glad they're posting the process version. Usually on the YouTube channel, they have the camera sort of fixed on the side, kind of like the webcam view I have right now. But in the Instagram, they do hold up their phone to sort of capture some parts, which is very, I would say it's tedious. Like you have to actually hold while drawing at the same time. It's pretty cool. It's pretty like it shows effort, right? So, and I actually do consider YeeJ Chan as one of my inspirations, personally. So here we have like a very textured brush, and notice most of the brush work is like it has some transparency or opacity in it, and they like to build up or layer the paint that way. But again, it's not very like clean or tight, right? Like it feels more like a painting than a rendering, even though in the end it looks so like finished and like rendered. But if you zoom in, you can really see the brushstrokes, which I really like. I mean, they do focus a lot, or reminds me a little bit of Asuka from just because of the the hair, the redhead sort of vibes. But yeah, I'm not sure what's happening here. Is this Attack on Titan? Maybe. But yeah, I do like the hair because that's where you can see like how people, because in anime it's very common to render the eyes, right? Like you can tell what the artist is kind of into by how they render the eyes, which you will see also definitely in YeeJ's work. So let's try zooming in on this one too. But going back to the hair, it reminds me a little bit of a Dinos or Dino underscore illus. They have this sort of impressionistic style as well, but if you zoom out, it starts to look kind of not super clean, but just a bit refined. But when you zoom in, you will really see the textures, the brush variety, and the painterliness of the thing. Like even the shirt of this guy who's being held by the chin. You see a rake brush over here. Let me just show you, right? Rake brush over here. We even have like a Terminator line. It's kind of an orange, right? We have some underlighting here, so these lines are a bit more like purplish. Like there's just so much like hues, lighting. There's some line work there as well. But yeah, let me just turn this off. Pretty cool. And I think they do often, let me just go back and see. Yeah, they do often leave the background simple. They're very just focused on the character. And like it takes up pretty much the majority of the canvas space. And I do like how they start the sketches. It's like super, it's almost like, it's just really rough and messy, but you see this sort of time lapse and this build up. It's just so fascinating to see. So I guess they do invest a lot of time getting the drawing right and getting that sort of line work. But once they've done that, then they have like another phase of like diving in deep, and that's the coloring phase. And they really go in deep. I'm not even sure how this thing or how long these types of paintings last, but I bet you they take forever. A couple of hours maybe. Oh, this is like from Demon Slayer. I forgot the character's name. I forgot her name. It's K something. The one who likes to eat a lot and it's kind of heavy on the top. Okay, right? Oh shit, it's too fast. But you get the point. Oh, let me just go back. Yeah, so check out Dino Illus as well. And you will see the way they do their hair is very similar to how YeeJ Chan does their hair as well. I believe they have this specific piece on the YouTube channel. Let me just go here. It's a Draw With Me Miku Ice Lemonade. And you will really enjoy. I mean, she doesn't really talk in her videos, but it's just nice to like observe that whole process from like super rough sketch to something that's really finished like this. Like when you zoom in, you will see, yeah, it's not like super tight, but it's sort of the style and the appeal comes from it being like sort of energetic this way. And that's what you get with a lot of like painterly sort of styles is you do get to retain or maybe even add more energy to your subject by showing off those brush strokes. And you'll notice again, they're not using very painterly-esque brushes, meaning you don't see a lot of like streaks from like bristles. I mean, the best or the thing that's really like a standout maybe is like a rake brush, which they occasionally use, but most of their painting brushes are like this basic sort of round brush, and maybe some mixer brushes or some kind of soft blending brush, but that's it. And they allow the transparency to work on the painting, kind of like watercolors. And you will see this in the eyes, like the way each thing is kind of being layered on top of another, you know, right? If you zoom in, you will see the edges. It's not always like gonna be clean, right? But, you know, it's just, it works. But it does get very tight as you zoom out. It's almost as if it was super rendered to like a fine detail, but... And yeah, I've noticed in their channel, they do zoom in quite a bit. So maybe that's the trick. Is to, because a common sort of advice I know is like zoom out. I mean, yeah, as a general rule to kind of get the composition, but it's not like it's not a strict rule, you know? You can zoom in and really like enjoy the rendering of, you know, stuff like the eyes or hair. So let's see this. This is from Spy X Family. Your Forger. Okay, what is she? Oh, she drew the blood. Interesting. So she selected or used a lasso selection tool, and then she painted something there, or used that as a kind of mask, and then she painted on top of that, maybe via clipping layers, right? To add those blood effects. Really cool. Right? It's so cool to look at. Let's try seeing like a finished, like just the image and not a video. Okay, maybe it's here. Is there like a next button? Oh, there isn't, but oh, this is like Chainsaw Man, the Power Girl. Power Girl? Or Power? Okay, we'll go here. It's an image of your Forger. Oh, we can't zoom in. Is that it? Okay, it's fine. But yeah, look at those eyes. It's so like well designed too, right? The mouth is like very demure. Like you could see a little bit of that rendering of the lip, but it's very like, you know, modest. And you do see a lot of that innocence in their work, especially in how they display the eyes. So this is I forgot her name. Also from Spy Family. Or Spy X Family. Let's go back to your Forger here, right? Oh, I do see a little bit of RGB shift effect, maybe, right? Especially in the corners. I do like that look. And instead of using like the blur tool or the blurs kind of effect, I think you can replace that with the RGB shift, because it does have that blurring effect as well. Just make sure you create a mask where you just leave that effect, that RGB shift effect, just on the edges, and you leave the thing you want to focus on just without the effect, and that's how it creates this kind of focus. It's a great replacement for the blur effect. Price, even the hair is so freaking majestic. Unfortunately, we can't really zoom in for this one, but yeah, interesting. They're very the facial. Usually, their facial expressions are kind of like, again, demure, quiet. Squid Game. Oh, as you go further back, their style does change. So it's only recently they've been really like focusing on this kind of like really cute face, kawaii face, big eyes, and like a really render type of thing. Let me just click on this one, right? I mean, you're zooming in to the eye in this level, right? So they're adding some highlights in the lower lashes of the eyes. Look at how like if you zoom in, you're gonna see like the brushstrokes, but if you zoom out, it's almost like serene. It's almost like a universe or a galaxy, right? If you look at the eyeballs. And I do notice for the eyes, they don't always draw like the edges. When they do color or paint it, they sort of let the eye or that white part of the eye sort of bleed into the skin. So I think they just know when to make something, or they just know when to not use lines, right? I mean, you will see it in the contours, for example, for this one, around the body, around the hair, but I guess inside the skin, or in every kind of major shape. Let me just open this in a new tab. So maybe it's taking a while to load, but okay, here we go. Oh my, okay. Okay, my bad. It keeps opening. Fuck, sorry. Okay, so let's bring out the pen. The lines are very obvious on the outside, right? On the contours. It's separating like the major sort of blocks from each other and from the background, but within the major shapes, how often do you see lines? Because we've seen a bunch of artworks where they do still add some line work, but oftentimes, let's say it's on the inside of the major shape, right? They usually color it to something that's very close to let's say it's in the skin, they'll color it like brown or something, and then leave the line on the outside like black, right? Or sometimes they'll still use like all the lines are black, but the interior lines are just way thinner. But for YeeJ Chan, they do it maybe in some parts, sure, but it's still very rare. They just like to render it or paint instead. So the only lines that really are there are the contour outer lines. Everything within the shapes, there's hardly any line work. Everything is sort of defined via the values. So let me just, for example, this part, the clavicles, you could have used some lines there, but they like to paint the interiors instead. So I think that's something you can observe from YeeJ Chan's work. Super cool. By the way, the next artist we're going to review is also I have followed their work before, but it's also a recommended artist. I got it from the comment section. So it's Croquette something. They have a very similar style to YeeJ Chan as well. So I think that's a good artist to review. Let me just zoom in and see the process. Okay, black and white. And then refined line. Or a more refined. Oh shit, it's too fast. Okay. A bunch of Miku stuff here. I'm not even sure where she's from. Is she from a game or something? Because I've seen stuff like Brazilian Miku and stuff like that. And I'm like, she's sort of a character that transcends like every. Does she even have an anime? I don't even know, but it reminds me of the anime recreators because there's one character there that she doesn't really have like a legit story, but like her story is just being built by other like fan art people. Anyway, I recommend you watch the show Recreators because like there are just some characters that transcend their own story. So like a lot of people who are outside of the original creator of the character, they add their own like story to that character to that character to shit to that character to that character to the point where they kind of become an even bigger like their story just expands from the original intent of the original artist. So Miku does have kind of that vibe, I believe. I'm so sorry, I'm not sure what's wrong with me, but maybe I'm just dehydrated, so coffee. Anyway, okay, let's see if the line thing we've talked about is, or if it applies here. We do see some lines in the edges, but in the interiors, how often do we see lines to define like chunks of interior like shapes? Not much. It's mostly painted. So I think our observation of how they sort of balance line and painting. Some lines on the contours, definitely it's mostly there. But the moment you go within those like defined shapes via those lines, it does get a lot more painterly. Now you can see in the edge of the contour of the face here, in the nose, in the mouth, they do color the lines like a red, orange something. So it's very close to like the skin tone. And again, look at the way they do the eyes. It's so like pretty. Oh, and I love the way they're very good at the whole lighting thing where they know. I think they're really like if you watch how they paint, I think they're very intuitive with how they approach their painting. Right? I don't feel like they're being like mathematical about it. And I think that's what I like about their work. There's sort of like a chaos. Like I feel like they don't always know how the painting is gonna turn out. So there's almost like an adventure, or like in the end, you kind of end up surprised with what you create, right? So they're just following their intuition, going at things stroke by stroke, and just right. I mean, look at this part of the sleeve; it's very impressionistic, right? I mean, even the face is still impressionistic, but it's just more, for example, for the eye, but it's just like you're just zoomed in, so you can hardly see the strokes anymore. But they still practice like the same sort of standard for like anime-esque art is the face is going to be way softer than everything else, right? Meaning there's less, I feel like they're using a bunch of like soft brushes. It's harder to see the brush strokes and it's very like soft. And well, let's see this video. Okay, very rough sketch, right? Even their sketch has like they're using like a basic round brush with some opacity, some flats. They do determine the lighting early, so that's interesting. The background kept very simple. They're adding the lighting, sort of what do you call that? Subsurface scattering, maybe. Some highlights. I mean, look at how. Again, you see the opacity in a lot of their brush strokes. Even with the eyes, as much as it's detailed, they're using that same basic round brush with the transparency or opacity set a little low. So very watercolor-esque, which I do like. This would have to be my favorite piece. It's the Miku. I think this video definitely. I believe I have this bookmark somewhere just for me to like head back and watch, because it's so inspiring just to watch their process. I mean, they have a bunch of videos here too to check out, so you can do that. But for me, my personal favorite would be, I mean, this one's kind of okay too, but this one just, like, it pulls my heart. Okay. Anyway, so that's it for this art review of YeeJ-chan. Check out their work. The YouTube channel, definitely, because they have a bunch of videos where you can actually study their work. And it's not like just a bunch of like skipped like video clips. Like, you can see the whole process in time lapse, obviously. But yeah, and they do show like they get sent a lot of like tablets too, so you can see how it works. So if you're interested in like buying a tablet, they do reference like if it's an XPPen, if it's a Hawaiian. So yeah, they even have a tour box thing going on here. So yeah, that's it for this review. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.